Welcome to the Tyler Werner Show, discussing all the latest in Philadelphia sports.
And another week in the books with the Philadelphia Eagles defeating the New York Giants narrowly, but nevertheless getting the win. And unlike Nick Foles being the concern coming out of this game, it may have been the defense, as they really gave Eli Manning and the New York Giants, the depleted New York Giants offense, a lot of space to perhaps win this game, play a little bit of a spoiler role, but the Eagles get it done. Nick Foles looking pretty good, albeit against a bad Giants team. The Eagles move to 12-2. They have a first-round bye, but the question is, can they win, take care of business against the Raiders this week, and then perhaps lock up home field advantage? That is the question during this Christmas weekend of 2017.
And now, here's Tyler Werner.
Yes, ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas to all in the Philadelphia sports region, primarily as we discuss all the wild and wacky in the Philadelphia sports scene. I don't know if you would call it wild and wacky, but the Philadelphia Eagles getting the job done, I guess is what it all boils down to this past Sunday. After coming out rather flat against the New York Giants, especially on defense. The defense was pretty questionable throughout. But the Philadelphia Eagles getting the job done, ultimately. And, I brought it up the previous week, last week, with the Minnesota Vikings when they had their third straight road game, which ended up being a loss against the Carolina Panthers. Maybe that whole idea rubbed off on the Eagles a little bit this week. And although the Eagles didn't lose, as it was their third straight road game, they didn't come out the same like maybe they should have. And that's the bottom line, especially on defense. But what can you say? Hats off to Nick Foles. He did it.
Let's make some noise. Come on.
He did his job. He threw for 4 touchdowns. Now, a couple of these drives were very short fields. The Giants, I don't know what they were doing defensively. I mean, they got a couple. Nick Foles took a couple big hits, but they didn't really throw any pressure his way, and they kind of just allowed him to sit back there in the pocket or whatever and take care of business, spread the ball around. Then again, the Giants, they're a dumpster fire. So I guess what do you expect from a coaching standpoint as far as game planning against this Eagles team? And performance-wise, again, I guess what do you expect? The Eagles took care of business. I was thinking maybe this was going to be a lower scoring game. Maybe the Eagles would get a convincing 24-7 win or 10 or something like that. But early in the first quarter, that kind of quickly got washed away as the Giants came out strong. The defense, they kind of got caught with their pants down a little bit. And the big question coming out of this game is not Nick Foles. Can he get the job done? Because I don't think it's really a fair evaluation after this game against a mutt defense in the New York Giants. And basically, a mutt team in general. I mean, they have 2 wins on the season. Only the Browns, with their winless 0-14, are worse. But the Philadelphia Eagles, my friends, their defense, that is what's becoming the concern, the main concern. Because we saw for how many games they would be stout. And look, the special teams, they made a couple plays. The Ronald Darby pick and run, that was great. Other than that, he was getting called out on Twitter for good reason because they didn't play well. And Darby didn't play very well other than that. And, he kind of he's afraid to be criticized, I guess, apparently. Basically, I'm going to block everybody who crew. Well, if they have fair criticism, a little bit of constructive criticism, then who are you to just, block somebody for that on Twitter? Not that I'm even a Twitter user, for that matter, but the defense now. You could say, I guess, 3 weeks in a row has come out and not been the same as what we've seen in previous games. And I guess I can kind of explain, and we can kind of explain that, well, against the Seahawks, yeah, they held them to 24 points. It's not like they were a total disaster. But Russell Wilson over at Seattle, kind of working his magic. By the way, I don't know what happened to the Seahawks. They got their doors blown off against the Rams this week, which kind of reasserts the Rams as a legitimate team that's pretty complete. After the Eagles defeated them last week, I think they came out angry and really, really took it to the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle, a division game, mind you. But a couple of weeks ago, Russell Wilson, working his magic, scrambling out of the pocket, doing what he does best with his legs and making plays. And I think that kind of caught up to the Eagles a little bit after many weeks where the Eagles' defense, could have been pretty complacent for what they were up against. They were still getting pressure to Russell Wilson, but it's Russell Wilson. What can you say? The Seahawks are 8-6. They wouldn't be 8-6 without him. The way this year is turning out for the Seahawks, with their defensive losses and inefficiencies at the offensive line and the running game. I mean, if they had to go to their backup quarterback, there'd be quite a drop off there. The only reason they're really alive in the playoff race right now, even though they're on the outside looking in, is because of Russell Wilson.
I agree.
Making plays with his... So, I can kind of look at that game, and while the defense wasn't terrible, they did get burned a little bit at times, and I can point to Russell Wilson as being the primary reason why. That's a tough kind of quarterback they weren't really used to facing up until then. They're facing a lot of inferior quarterbacks in weeks prior. Now, they go to the next week against the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles. Big game. A pretty complete team. They got 35 points put up on them. Now, they did enough offensively. Carson Wentz, they made plays, they did what they had to do, and they won the game 43-35. But you look at this game, it's like, okay, well, the defense, they looked worse than the week before. Todd Gurley kind of chewed them up in the running game. And at times, Jared Goff had his way against the Eagles' secondary. Even though the Eagles made some plays on defense, they gave up a lot of points. And for the second week in a row, you can kind of say they were not the same defense as in weeks prior. Now again, the Rams this week, they go out and 42-7 against the Seahawks? 42-7. The Seahawks throughout the season have not... I believe they haven't lost by more than 6 points the entire season. I could be wrong on that, but I remember going into the Eagles game looking at, in total, the Seahawks' losses up to that point, and they were all narrow losses because Russell Wilson keeps in the game. Well, not against the Rams this past week. I mean, geez. So, the Rams, very legitimate offense. Jared Goff having a great season. big jump from year 1 to year 2, as, Carson Wentz. Todd Gurley, again, kind of rekindling some magic that he had early in his career. Early in the season, they weren't, I guess, running him the way he was meant to be. Not running him under center and yada yada. And the Rams roll on. They're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs at 3rd or 4th seed. Dangerous team. And who knows? They could end up coming to Philadelphia. And that could end up being a tough game with Nick Foles under center. And maybe with this defense being the way it is. All right, so we go from the Rams then. All right, I can see that. To the Giants. A third poor week in a row for the defense. I mean, maybe that one against the Seattle, so maybe you couldn't classify it as poor. But against the Giants, all right, here we go. With Eli Manning and a depleted receiving core. And somehow it's like they have their way. So it seems. The Eagles get the job done again. They do enough on offense. Foles was spreading the ball around. They benefited from good field position at times. But this Eagles defense came out rather flat, especially early in the game. And they only sacked Eli Manning one time. Of course, it was Brandon Graham. Who else? Who, by the way, got snubbed from the Pro Bowl this year. I mean, come on. That's not right. To me, he's a bona fide Pro Bowler, the way he's been playing for this Eagles defense.
Oh, man.
That's not right. I don't know how he doesn't get included in the Pro Bowl lineup this year, but whatever. Getting the lone sack for the I was kind of joking last week. Like, I thought, what's the over under for how many times the Eagles sack Eli? I mean, I was thinking like 6.5. They didn't really get to the core. They didn't sack the quarterback, and that's important against playoff teams. Not just hurrying the quarterback, getting to the quarterback, but sacking him is a big, big difference. So I look at this game and I'm wondering, like, are they? I don't know. Were they smelling themselves a little bit? Was there a bit of a trap game kind of thing? Was it a bit of that 3 straight road games kicking in? I don't know. I guess we can look at a couple. I can't look at it and think, did they forget how to play defense? The secondary. I mean, it's like they were biting a little too much on these inferior receivers. All right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. or Brandon Marshall were out there disguised as backup receivers for the New York Giants, who really haven't done diddly for this team throughout the year. Hence the 2-12 record of the New York Giants. I mean, come on. I gotta think. They're coming back home. They're going to be back home for the first time in a month. They're going to host this Oakland Raiders team on Christmas night. 8:30 game. Looking forward to it. Just because it's, I don't know. Just because it's a nice twist on Christmas. I can't ever remember actually watching the Philadelphia Eagles on Christmas. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. Well, not kind of. I look forward to every Eagles game, even though it's not Carson Wentz out there. Nevertheless, it's a chance to lock in home field advantage. And again, And playoffs are almost here. Week after week, I've been evaluating things. And obviously last week, things were shaken up with Carson Wentz, unfortunately going down for the season. I'm hearing as well the one band in his knee as well may have been affected, injured, whatever, and this unfortunate ACL tear could be even worse than originally thought. But I'm going to try not to go there too much because it is what it is. That's what last week was about. The unfortunate circumstance of that. But we got to ride on, and we got to hope that Nick Foles is going to be good enough to get the job done. Not that I think he is, but the Eagles' home field advantage, I don't know. This week, defensively, is kind of a chance to get back on track. All right? Tighten up some loose screws, if you will. Look at the last couple of weeks, things that went wrong, and kind of, get back to that, what was a top 5 defense in the league. Now I think they're 6th in the league, which, it's understood. You give up 35 points to the Rams. You give up 29 to the Giants. Last couple, that's going to happen. Numbers don't always tell the story, but what we can see on the field the last couple weeks with the Eagles' defense is not what you want to see going forward here. They very well may lock up home field advantage because the common opponents against the Minnesota Vikings, tiebreaker may very well kick in. And they take care of business against the Raiders. They have 13 wins. They may not really have to play their starters much at all against the Dallas Cowboys if they have home field advantage locked up. They may want to get them out there a little bit. Like in the sense like preseason maybe, but I don't think they want to rest them the whole game, nor do they want to play them the whole game. Try to keep them healthy, but get them out there a little bit so that they have some game day experience there that carries over to kind of bridge the gap a little bit because they're already going to have a bye in the wild card playoffs. So I think that whole thing kind of kicks in a little bit. If they do lock up home field advantage and take care of business against the Oakland Raiders, and I think they will. We're going to talk about it on the Tyler Werner Show today. Because I do think the Raiders, after the loss they suffered this week, was kind of the nail in the coffin for them. I mean, I guess somehow they could still technically. Well, I think it's very slim chance, if any, they could make the playoffs at this point. Even though, there might be 2 9-7 wild cards, or maybe even an 8-8 could sneak in there somehow. See how things shake out, but I think it's for the most part a 2, maybe 3-horse race in the AFC. Given the Jaguars, well, it is what it is with them. But so that's kind of where we sit right now. The Philadelphia Eagles. They should be able to take care of business, I think, against the Oakland Raiders this week. What do you think? The Raiders are coming off of kind of a nail in the coffin loss. Eagles back at home. A chance to reassert themselves defensively and snuff this Oakland Raiders team, who really having a subpar season after coming out of the woodwork last season and almost elevating themselves to being a major contender in the AFC. Really, really big drop-off for them. I think the Eagles should be able to take care of business. Offensively, I think they should be able to have their way again. See how they come out. maybe strong, maybe so that they don't have to pass as much. They don't have to rely on passing as much, getting behind early like they did this week. But still, Nick Foles a respectable 24 for 38, 237 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, for what he had to do this game, you know, I tip my cap to him. But, you know,
How's everyone doing?
That doesn't mean I have any. Doesn't mean I have great confidence that he's going to be able to take on Minnesota, perhaps, or another, maybe the same, and just light it up in the playoffs. But we roll on with Nick Foles under center here on the Tyler Werner Show. We'll come back on the other side and discuss more right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Stay tuned.
Hi there, I'm Hank Hill. Well, I'd like to tell you what Strickland can do to meet your energy needs. You see, at Strickland, the customer comes first. It's kind of interesting. The word customer begins with CU. Well, we don't see you as just another sale, but as a member of our team. I thought you might enjoy 7.5 gallons of pure premium propane. Strickland Propane, the customer comes first.
Investigators are calling it the heist of the century. The grand robbery of Brady and Belichick's slow-cooked Italian meatballs, committed by some apparently hungry NFL officials who love their balls.
When I came in Monday morning, I was shocked to learn of the news reports about the balls and the process that happened between when they were prepared and went to the officials and went to the game.
As shocked as Belichick was of the news, perhaps Brady, the last man out of the kitchen on that Sunday night, was even more shocked to hear of the news of the theft.
I have a process that I go through. It was the same process that I always go through. When I felt them, they were perfect. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone touching those. I would zip those things up and lock them away, and that's what I thought I was doing.
As Brady and Belichick upped the ante on their ball security, you'll just have to pick up a pack of their meatballs the next time you hit the grocery store and enjoy just how perfect these balls really are.
Tom's personal preferences on his ball security are something that he can talk about in much better detail than I could possibly provide.
Back on the Tyler Werner Show, pre-Christmas edition. Here we are, Philadelphia Eagles 12-2 after defeating the 2-12 New York Giants, now 2-12, narrowly escaping the Meadowlands with a win. And a lot of that, again, has to do with this defense. A little bit concerning in recent weeks. Are they falling apart? Are they wearing down? Or has this 3-game road trip kind of just caught up with them a little bit? They need to, get back home, I guess, play in their home field again. I don't know. I don't know what to necessarily say about it for now, other than I think they're going to come out stronger against the Raiders this coming Christmas evening on Monday night. They're going to come out victorious. They're kind of going to return to form a little bit defensively. And I see, I see like a 30-17 bounce back victory a little bit. Not that they, they're bouncing back from a loss or anything, but I would expect they're going to turn in a better performance than what we saw against the New York Giants. I think that's the bottom line. So, over in Sixer world, after sitting out the last 2 games, once again with returning back soreness, following 3 losses in a row now, Joel Embiid, appears he's going to be sitting another 2 games due to this back soreness.
Man, I love y'all. I hope y'all keep trusting the process.
Yeah, it's I was saying earlier this season how this, recent years it's been the whole thing, trust the process with the Sixers. And how this season was going to shape up to be more of a witness the progress. All right, my motto's been, as of late, for the Sixers, we trusted the process, and now we're going to witness the progress. But I'm just starting to get the sense that with Markelle Fultz kind of being a question mark as to when he's going to play, and now he's got this anxiety issue that you wonder, how's that going to bode here in the professional league of basketball in the NBA? And I'm just starting to have this concern. Is this going to be another trust the process season for the Sixers? Is that first round, that top pick in last year's draft, is that going to be a blown draft pick? It's just tough. It's tough when Embiid is not out there with Simmons. When you already got Markelle Fultz, who's not suiting up to play either. So you kind of got to rely on Ben Simmons, who's shot shy, if you will. Sixers lose again to another inferior team. Again, maybe I'm going a little too over the edge about it, given that Embiid wasn't playing. But they're 2 games below 500 now. They were at one point 5 games over 500. Now they're 2 below. Meanwhile, they're turning in bad fourth quarter meltdowns against the likes of the Sacramento Kings, who are 10-20 now, by the way. Inferior team. And before that, against the Chicago Bulls. And I know both of these games without Joel Embiid, but still. They don't have Embiid out there. What they're turning in is just not enough against bad teams. Before that, losing to the Bulls, getting eked out. Bulls are now 9-20. I know the Bulls have been a little hot lately, but still, it's pathetic. What the kind of effort they're turning, and then of course, that triple overtime on Friday against the Thunder. That's one of those things where here Embiid's getting almost 50 minutes now. Simmons over 50. J.J. Redick, you're talking about. I guess it took a toll on his back, and Joel Embiid is reportedly going to miss the next 2 games, kind of going to be shut down the rest of the week, unfortunately.
Yesterday I did pull out.
So I don't know. I guess maybe chalk up another 2 losses for the Sixers. Sixers hosting the Raptors on Thursday. We'll see how they fare against the Raptors. They just easily handled the Kings themselves, as a matter of fact, on Sunday, coming off of a win against them. So the Raptors rolling right now at 20-8, I believe. So stiff competition coming up in them. And then following the Toronto Raptors, they got the Knicks on Monday. Well, Well, actually, they got 2 here against the Raptors. So tomorrow night and Saturday at 5 p.m. So I guess, you chalk a couple more losses up there, especially without Joel Embiid. And then Monday they take on the Knicks. Maybe Embiid will be back for that game against the Knicks. Who knows? So a doubleheader against the Raptors. Again, riding high. I believe 12 games over 500 right now. So that's not boding well for the Sixers.
Oh, no!
Meanwhile, the Flyers, of course, the other night, their 6-game winning streak, they were riding high. Starting to make up for that 10-game losing streak. They're starting to get it to, at least they have been. Take on the Red Wings tonight at 8 o'clock. We'll see what happens there. Of course, coming off of a harsh 4-1 defeat to the Chicago Blackhawks the other night, ending their 6-game winning streak. I'm sorry, not the Kings, Los Angeles Kings, my bad. So they're going to face the Red Wings tonight. Manageable game, bounce-back game for the Flyers at the Wells Fargo Center. I would hope that they win that tonight. And then they got one against the Buffalo Sabres next day on Friday night on the road in Buffalo. I would hope that they turn around and beat them. And then they have Thursday off, and then Saturday. So back-to-back Friday and Saturday before they have off until the following Thursday against the Florida Panthers. They got the Blue Jackets on Saturday on the road. So we will see how they fare these next few games. I'm thinking, they should hopefully win the next couple. And the Blue Jackets, though, they're looking like a good team this year, as they have in recent years as well. So see how they fare against them. That should be a tough test. But hopefully pick up a couple more wins here, get back on the winning track that they were on for 6 games in a row. Let's hope they can do that. Eagles, of course, starting last week, getting back on the winning track, if you will, against the Los Angeles Rams. And that brought us to this Giants game on Sunday afternoon where the Eagles, again, the defense, it certainly came out flat early on. And the Eagles quickly found themselves behind, in a two-score game. But the offense kept pace. They were successful throwing the ball. Nick Foles, he did well. He spread the ball around. Trey Burton with a touchdown. Zach Ertz, Nelson Aguilar, another touchdown this year as well. Alshon Jeffrey. So, Nick Foles turning in a solid performance. But I'm thinking this game against the Raiders, I'm hoping as well to see more something from the run game. I can't complain too much with how the offense was run, given they won the game. They scored 34 points. They did benefit from some good field position. But I feel like Jay Ajayi should be getting more than 12 carries a game. That's just me. It seemed as though early on, and again, this might be something against better teams where, things have to be a little more, defined in the running game, to me. Where you might want to rely a little more on a guy like Jay Ajayi, who you brought here, who it seems is going to be next year, maybe, you would hope the next few years, the number one running back, the definitive number one running back. And the hope is that, well, for one thing, you don't fall behind early in a game against the New York Giants, but that he's going to get more than 12 carries a game. Now, I know they do this. They have this rotation where they spread the ball around. And they get, I guess they try to feel out the opponent. They try to feel out which matchups favoring which back and yada, yada. Because, I mean, early in the game, even after the first couple drives, between the Jay, Blunt, Barner, Clement, they all had at least one carry after the first couple drives of the game. You know, they'll bring one back out, run the ball, then maybe they'll bring another one out, run them a couple times. I don't know. Hey, you can make a case, Kenyon Barner. I mean, he only had 2 carries, but he averaged 10.5 carries of his 2 carries. Blunt, 7 carries for 21 yards. He's more, I don't know, he's more, or at least he's had the reputation of being more of a guy that you're going to pound the ball with later in the game. You're ahead. You try to wear the opponent down, ground him out late in the game. Now, he's had success earlier in the season in some games, more throughout the game, where he's put together a performance where he has nearly 100 yards on the ground. But just going forward, I just wonder where he stands now late in the season, where he's going to stand next year, as he's got a lot of mileage on him. And in theory, that's why the Patriots got rid of him, although the Eagles have gotten some good use out of him this year. But I'm just saying, Jay Ajayi is certainly no stiff. And I want to see, I think one of the keys to this game against the Raiders this weekend is going to be, for one, the defense to come out prepared and not unprepared and caught off guard like they were against the New York Giants, with an inferior receiving core, an inferior running game for that matter, and a quarterback in Eli Manning who's been struggling pretty much all season long and looking like his best days are behind him. That whatever magic he may have sort of had last year when the Giants were 11-5 and a playoff contender, it's looking like that's gone. Gone are the days of that. And that may or may not be fair to say, given he's been without Odell Beckham Jr. this season, pretty much all season, and Brandon Marshall. That whole thing really evaporated early in the season. But hey, great quarterbacks, a lot of great quarterbacks in this league. They get it done with an inferior receiving core. Maybe not as inferior as the Giants, but I just expect this Eagles defense against the Raiders to come out more prepared, is what I'm getting at. Kind of return to form here. And the other key with that is the Eagles just pounding the ball. I think the defense, they set the tone early in the game. They don't give up anything. Before you know it, the Eagles maybe find themselves with the lead early on, maybe a 10-point lead. They can kind of just do what they can with the running game, manage the game well. Don't have to rely on Nick Foles very much to make plays or to go downfield. You can nickel and dime him maybe with him. You have to take too many shots, but you pound the ball meanwhile. You control the clock. You move the chains with Jay Ajayi. Some LeGarrette Blount in there maybe as well as a change-up guy. But this is a game where I kind of want to see a bit of a return to form. because we didn't really see that with the Giants this past weekend. But I think now is as good of a time as any. You come back home to kind of reestablish yourselves, reestablish your identity. It's kind of what I'm getting at. And on Christmas night, jolly old Saint Nick can deliver a win without having to do too much, I think.
What the hell?
Yeah, jolly old. Yeah, and by the way, speaking of that, I was hearing, I didn't see this yet, but about a billboard in Philadelphia, like, we believe in Saint Nick Foles or whatever, somewhere in Philadelphia. A picture of Nick Foles, I guess, on this billboard somewhere in the great city of Philadelphia, in a Santa hat, I guess. So
Let's make some noise, come on!
Foles, old Saint Nick, just in time for Christmas, Saint Nick Foles. Coming back on the other side, we'll take a look around the league this past weekend, around the NFL. Top 5 thoughts I had, other games outside of the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll be back to talk about it right here on the Tyler Werner Show. Stay tuned for more after this.
It's no big news flash that many people, you included, eat as a way to medicate themselves. You can choose to worry about it or not. You can choose to panic about your situation or not. It's clear what you must do in order to make important changes.
5 letters here. RELAX. Relax. We're going to be okay.
In order for you ever to effectively figure out and map how to get to where you want to go, you have to first know exactly where you are starting.
RELAX. Relax.
You have to be willing to change what you're doing. You can change your behavior.
Number 1 box office attraction, number 1 WWE superstar, multi-time WWE champion, Brock Lesnar.
Time to revamp your office space, eh? Looking for an interior decorator? Look no further than Brock Lesnar.
Now that's the way a real man uses a sledgehammer.
Out with the old, in with the new. Give Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman a call.
Mr. Lesnar, you're the future of interior decorator. I think we're done.
It's the Tyler Werner Show. Here in the third, final segment here of this pre-Christmas edition. Right here. And we are discussing this Raiders game, the Philadelphia Eagles. The defense being a bit of a concern, amongst other things in Philadelphia sports, like Joel Embiid's back, and maybe just the Sixers in general right now, as they've been struggling. But we're talking Philadelphia Eagles football in hopes that they take care of business this weekend and very well lock up home field advantage. I believe they had the tiebreaker over the Vikings. So if they win this weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles lock up home field advantage, as they are a game better than the Vikings to begin with right now. And yeah, effectively lock up home field advantage in doing that. Meanwhile, the Packers, they're going to have to, well, they shut down Rodgers for the rest of the season, but the Vikings now face a Rodgerless Packers team once again. They were the team that originally knocked them out. But without any further ado, we now take this time here in the Tyler Werner Show to go around the NFL with my top 5 thoughts, as always, as the playoffs loom.
Playoffs?
That's right. Playoffs loom with just 2 weeks to go in the 2017 regular season. Where has this fall gone? As I believe tomorrow is the first official day of... Is it the 21st? I forget. First official day of winter. Well, for all intents and purposes, it's kind of here anyways. But top 5 thoughts around the NFL following on the heels of Week 15. And here we go. Number 5. No, we go 5, 4. Not number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. We go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 here. And ladies and gentlemen, after a big mid-season slump, it appears that Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs are back on the right track. As on Saturday Night Football, they handed the Chargers a big loss, in the sense that the Chargers had, they were a hot team over there in the AFC West. They were looking like maybe the front runner to win that division the way they've been playing, but Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs had something else to say about that. As the Chiefs defeated the Chargers 30-13. Big win for the Chiefs to kind of get them back on track in first place in that division. And if they finish strong enough these next 2 games, they should lock it. I mean, if they win the next one, then they probably lock up the division as it is. So the Chargers now fighting for their playoff lives. And outside, maybe a chance at a wild card spot, but that was a big, devastating loss for the San Diego Chargers. Number 4 thought around the NFL this week for me, Buffalo Bills getting an important win over division rivals Miami Dolphins, in effect, ending their playoff chances as far as everything's concerned. And the Bills to stay alive in the wild card race in the AFC. Big win over their division rivals. Not in the 24-16, not as far as, but a big win that keeps them alive in the playoff race, as they could perhaps enter in as a wild card team this year to make their first playoff appearance since the year 2000. Will the Bills be able to do it? We'll have to wait and see.
What?
Yes, 2000. Number 3 thought around the NFL for me in Week 3 action. It's got to be the Carolina Panthers handing the Packers a loss. Aaron Rodgers makes his return. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Collarbone was going sore again, so they have decided to shut down Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the season, as they've been mathematically eliminated from the playoff race with this loss. The Packers fall to 7-7, cannot get in due to tie-breaking scenarios with the likes of the Falcons. So, effectively, what is Aaron Rodgers going to do the rest of the season and off-season?
5 letters here. R-E-L-A-X. Relax. We're going to be okay.
He's going to relax. Not to poke fun at Rodgers, because let's face it, the Packers would have gotten in the playoffs. They could have run if they would have run the table or something. Could have been a deadly playoff wild card team there in the Green Bay Packers. A team that certainly I wouldn't have wanted to see the Eagles face in the the divisional round of the playoffs, where the Eagles would have to host, likely, the Green Bay Packers. But that's water under the bridge now, as the Packers have been eliminated from playoff contention. Number 2 thought around the NFL, Week 15 edition. It's the Los Angeles Rams. And their bounce back of a win in blowout fashion against the Seattle Seahawks, 42-7, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, what in the heck? Russell Wilson's my starting quarterback in fantasy, and he basically didn't do diddly this game for me, unlike most games. Fortunately, I had an easy enough time beating my fantasy opponent to go to the finals. So, Russell Wilson, though, may have been a bit of a fantasy killer this week for many in fantasy world. As he led his team in rushing with 5 carries for 39 yards. That just shows how sad the Seahawks team can be in the rushing department. And certainly they struggled against this Los Angeles Rams defense that kind of returned to form a little bit after the Eagles overall defeated them 43-35 the week before. Nobody on the Seattle Seahawks got more than 3 receptions. That's J.D. McKissick, running back for the Seahawks, got 3 carries. Everybody else, 1 or 2 carries. I mean, they just got shut down. Russell Wilson, 14 for 30. Not a very Russell Wilson-like game. And this was at Seattle, mind you. All the while, Todd Gurley, 21 carries for 152 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Seattle Seahawks. He chewed them up and spit them out. I mean, basically, I think he might be in the number one. He might be number 1 in rushing, if I'm not mistaken, in the league this year. Especially with Ezekiel Elliott missing the last several games. We'll see. I believe he returns against the Seattle Seahawks this week. And without further ado, number 1 thought around the NFL in Week 15. It is the New England Patriots with the 27-24 win, as I suspected they would. Take care of business.
No days off. No days off.
Bill Belichick and the Patriots, no days off. Well, I'm sure. It's kind of they have to take a day off from practice during the. But this Patriots team, they bounced back after a loss to the Dolphins, maybe a trap game, a look-ahead game. It was, as I called it last week. But the Patriots bounce back. They get the 27-24 win, and I'm not disputing it at all. People want to blame the officials got that call wrong. Well, with the catch near the end of the game, that technically, by the letter of the law, was not a catch. When you're falling to the ground with the ball and you hit the ground and the ball comes loose, it's not a catch. That's the way the rule is. I didn't make the rule. That's the way it is. Maybe it's a stupid rule, but that happens anywhere on the field, whether it's inbounds at the 50 or wherever. And that happens when a player is falling to the ground with the ball and the ball pops out upon falling to the ground. It's not a catch. That's the bottom line. I wonder if that happened with the Patriots, whether it'd be that same kind of backlash. Like, oh, the calls got it wrong. Patriots should have won the game. They got screwed. When do you hear that? But nevertheless, the Patriots are the winners. That's the bottom line. 27-24. And the Steelers had another chance at the end there to win the game, and they failed. That's the bottom line. So now the Patriots, I'm looking at this correctly, they finish up with the Bills and the Jets. Let me look at their schedule again. I know it's the 2 division opponents. Let's see here. Patriots, as far as locking up seeds are concerned, yes. They host the Bills and the Patriots the following week. Both finish up with home games at Foxborough. My guess is they're going to want to wrap things up here. They're going to want to get home field advantage again. They probably went out. That loss against the Dolphins, maybe a wake-up call, a look-ahead game to the Steelers. but I think the Patriots probably take care of business, win out. They have the tiebreaker over the Steelers. They're both 11-3. So the Steelers at the Texans this week and then hosting the Browns. Steelers should also win out. So both teams, I would think, finish 13-3. And with that in mind, the Patriots would get the nod for home field advantage due to the win over the Steelers. And then just to kind of look at the standings here in the playoff picture. The Jaguars at 10-4, looking like the third seed right now. Jaguars back in the playoffs. Third seed. Number one defense in the league. What can you say? That's why I caught on to them early in the season, picked them up off for fantasy. Basically abandoning the Seattle Seahawks defense with the injuries they've had. Meanwhile, the Chiefs 8-6, they're looking like the fourth seed. Again, the Chargers are 7-7. That win with the Chiefs was huge, without question, as they have the advantage in that division right now. So then that leaves us with the 8-6 Bills in the wild card race, the 8-6 Ravens as well, and the 8-6 Titans. Between one of those teams, will probably be an odd team out. The Chargers, I guess, an outside chance at 7-7. They're fighting for their playoff lives. So really, they're probably the only other team in the mix there for the wild card race. So you got 3 8-6 teams and a 7-7 Chargers team. So one team from each division there in contention for a wild card spot. That's basically what we're looking at over in the AFC. And then, of course, take a look over at the NFC right now. You have the Eagles, number one seed. They win. They very well should clinch that home field advantage at 13-2. The last game against the Cowboys, Cowboy fans, they want to poke fun that Carson Wentz, out for the season, tore his ACL. Oh, well, they didn't have Ezekiel Elliott on the first game. Well, you know what? This game might not even matter. So even if the Cowboys come here to Philadelphia and they beat the Eagles, they might not even have their starters out for much of the game. It really could matter less for them if they win or do not win the game. So I guess that would make another, even if the Cowboys win, it's like, what would it matter? What would it matter for the Philly? What would it matter for this season? When the Cowboys, maybe they get in the playoffs, I don't know. There's an outside chance of that happening still, but,
No one cares.
Who cares? That might be as long as the Eagles take care of business, that last game against the Cowboys pretty much wouldn't matter. So the Eagles on top of it. Vikings at 11-3, looking like the second seed. They'll probably win out. Finish 13-3, and then leaves us with the Saints at 10-4, the Rams at 10-4. The Panthers, the Rams have that division. Panthers 10-4 right now, holding the 5th wild card spot. And then the Falcons at 9-5, holding that 6th seed. Seahawks, of course, 8-6, but the Falcons have a nod against them. Cowboys at 8-6, Lions at 8-6. So basically, those 3 8-6 teams vying for a wild card spot. The Seahawks, I believe, are on the road against the Cowboys this week. with Big Zeke. Saw an opportunity to rhyme there. Thought I would. But that's that scenario. Packers eliminated at 7-7. Now I want to see here the Falcons, if they win this week. Now they're at the Saints, and then they finish off hosting the Carolina Panthers, and this could be interesting. The Falcons, if they lose both of those games, they could be in trouble. They very well might be in trouble. Of course, they're coming off of the other week ago, a 2017 win against the New Orleans Saints. But that was at Atlanta. Now they're on the road against the Saints this week. And then they host the Carolina Panthers, who they lost 2017 earlier in November. That was on the road, the revenge situation. Panthers can be a little erratic. Cam Newton, has been a little erratic this year. So, that's what we're looking at. The Falcons, of course, they hold a tiebreaker against the Seahawks, and they hold a tiebreaker against the Cowboys. So, the Cowboys lose one of these games, they're effectively eliminated. The Falcons win one of these games, then Cowboys, Seahawks are eliminated. And as well as the Lions, because the Falcons defeated the Lions. See, the Falcons, they're almost a shoo-in. They have all these tiebreakers against these other potential wild card teams. And the Lions, let's look at their schedule. At the Bengals this week, and then hosting the Packers. Now, see, that's interesting. Lions may very well win both of those games and finish 10-6. So the Falcons lose both of them, and the Lions would get in. Lions have it easy, but whether or not the Falcons, and big question is whether or not the Falcons win a game against these two tough teams in their division rivals. If they win one of them, it's decided. The Falcons are in no matter what, and basically every other team in the conference is eliminated who's not already in the playoff mix, who's not leading their division, or is not the Carolina Panthers, the New Orleans Saints, or the Atlanta Falcons. That's basically what it all boils down to. That's the bottom line. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, I guess in the AFC, it's a little bit more non-linear in the wild card race. Because basically both wild card seeds are kind of up in the air right now with 8-6 teams and a 7-7 Chargers team. It's a little more up in the air. Whereas the Falcons win this week, everything's decided. That's where things stand. AFC, not quite as top-heavy overall as the NFC is this year, as far as records go. So, that'll wrap things up for this edition of the Tyler Werner Show. Christmas time, it's here. We're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles on Christmas evening or night, whatever you want to call it, 8:30. Hosting the Oakland Raiders. I think they should win 30-17. I'm seeing something like that. Eagles control the game pretty well, I would think, with this run game, with this defense returning to form. If this is another game where the Eagles' defense has struggles, at home, mind you, then my confidence is certainly going to really be wavering on them. On top of already Carson Wentz being out the rest of the way, and maybe in the next season, unfortunately, my confidence will definitely be shaken. But we'll see what happens on Christmas night. I don't know about everyone else. Tonight, On the movie menu for me, Die Hard. That's right.
Yippee-ki-yay.
I don't know. Maybe not quite. I don't know if you consider it a bona fide Christmas movie or not. I don't really consider it a full-on Christmas movie like your Home Alones of the world or Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase or whatever.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But nevertheless, I watch it just because I'm not a huge Christmas guy. But a big action movie with Bruce Willis like that, action-packed, well directed, well scripted and everything. Well acted. Yeah, it's just great stuff. What more can I say? And it's a staple for me, nevertheless, to watch during Christmas time. So that'll do it for the Tyler Werner Show. We'll talk to you next time between Christmas and New Year's, following on the heels of the Eagles-Raiders game on Christmas night. Everybody who celebrates it, have a Merry Christmas, or if you celebrate Hanukkah or whatever else, happy holidays to you. We'll talk to you next time on the Tyler Werner Show.